that's working. Let's see.
Oh, I know how to I rigging a guy in Blender. It took me like a while to learn that actually. Like it was pretty tough. I think I like powered it through like a month and I could barely do like facial animations and like I at least got like like the basics down, but I wasn't near like perfection like professional or anything. It's really tough.
Yeah,
I feel like you
rigging.
really rigging is a very under underappreciated and very understaffed job. Like
Hmm.
people really want riggers because there's just
Yeah.
not a lot of them.
I
Yeah.
never even tried to do facial rigs, but it
Facial
sounds
rigs are
awful.
I did it
cool.
for the video game I did recently. It's not a fun it's not a fun task.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Wait, Karina, can you check if the stream is working?
Oh
I
yeah,
think
give me a
Twitch is
sec.
broken on my side of thing, or like I don't know, it just won't load up for me whenever I am working.
Looks good to me.
Okay, it's like streaming.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I can hear the audio too.
Okay, cool. All right. Yeah. Well, I mean, we just kind of been talking this whole time, but thanks everyone for coming to the today's workshop. We're gonna do some pretty cool stuff. Thanks to Yohannes coming
Yeah.
in with the big brain stuff. Gonna learn sculpting and some anatomy. I guess. I mean, I'm not the workshop officer. I'm just here to like host it. So Alex knows all of the background stuff, but he's taking a test right now. So I'll just let him
Yeah.
start doing the teaching now. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey guys, I'm Johannes, and I'm gonna be showing you how to sculpt in Blender today. And this is gonna be like a beginner to slightly intermediate workshop. So if you can't keep up, just let me know. I can slow down for you guys. And if you guys have any questions on any terms and um any questions you'd like to be answered, then please feel free. Don't hesitate. I'm an open book. So let me go and share my screen real. Oh, it disabled screen sharing. Yeah. Give me
Nah, I'm so sorry. I don't know why I didn't turn
Oh,
that
you're
on
good. You're
earlier.
good. It happens.
Okay. Uh,
Isaac does it all the time.
how do I how do I do this? I'm like never the host, so I just don't know how to do this. Let's see.
I think a quick way is just to give Johannes co-host permissions and stuff.
Co-host. Yes. He's co-hosted now. Does it work? Could also make you the host.
Um, Advanced sharing options. Only host, all participants. Okay, wait. I think
Well,
did I do it? Wait, we can also start sharing.
right. Multiple can start sharing. Advanced. Who can share? It says all participants.
Should be. Okay, I can share screen now. Okay, wait. Yeah,
Okay,
no,
cool,
it worked.
cool.
Yeah. All right, so I'll continue. All right. So, uh, so if you downloaded Blender already, just open it up and it'll show you the screen. I'm on version 2.92. If you don't have 2.92, it's completely fine. Um, it should still have a very similar layout. And what you want to do is click sculpting. It should still have sculpting on all of the versions. So click that. And you're given this like ball thing. And you can manipulate it and whatever with any of the brushes. And I guess first off, yeah, just um, if you want to switch between tabs, just a real quick note at the very start, you hold tab and control. I don't know what that is on Mac. I think it's something tab. I think it's like the Apple key or something. I completely forgot, but sorry, I'm not a Mac user. But on Mac, I'm on Windows, it's Control Tab, and you can switch between the various modes here. And what we're going to be using a lot is object mode and sculpt mode. Object mode we're going to use because we're switching around objects and clicking on them. And basically, whatever object you pick, that is the focus of your sculpt. If you, let's say, like I spawn in another cube or circle or sphere, and I click that one, and I go back to sculpt mode, I can't influence this one at all. It will be only focused on the selected object. So that's what we're going to be doing. So, and I know if you think this is tedious, it kind of is, switching back and forth. But they're making a new build for Blender where you can just press the D key on over an object and it will switch to it in sculpt mode, which makes things a lot less tedious. But I don't have access to that at the moment. So that's the only reason why we're going to use object mode. Most of everything that you need is in sculpt mode if you want to sculpt. Like the only reason I use sculpt mode is to like spawn in stuff or like join stuff together. That's really it. Okay, so delete that. And I think I want to delete these two just because they're kind of there. Just get a clearer picture. And okay, let's select your sphere. And now turn on your symmetry first, and I'll get to my PowerPoint just so that I can show you. Okay, so what we're gonna do are base meshes. Base meshes are like a blank template for character design, and they're used a lot in the industry, and they could be varied based on their complexity. You can be very low poly, like the one in the lower left, that's very low poly base mesh, or you could be very high poly, like the one like on the upper left corner. Really depends on how you want and what your preferences are. Doesn't really matter. So what we're gonna do with how we're gonna make the base meshes are with the brushes. And there's like 27 different brushes in Blender. There's a lot in Blender, but there's no like best brush. You all kind of use like brushes in unison to achieve like a certain goal. It's very hard to be successful as an artist if you only use one brush. In like a lot of cases, like the real masterpieces are from usually using like a bunch of brushes in unison, and that's how you really get that finished look. And the brushes that I typically use are very simple for making the base mesh. So what I use is sharp, grab, and clay strips, and these are usually what I use to define structures or certain parts. And we have a question here. Wait, how do I open chat? I can't see chat. How do I? Oh, I guess. Oh, okay. So it's Control Tab 2. That's good. So this is, and what we're gonna do first is we're gonna block out the sculpt, and the whole reason why we block out is so that we can set proportions at the very beginning, and we don't have to go back and forth and waste time constantly changing proportion. You would want to get your foundation right so that the detail that you put on your foundations are set, because whenever you're doing your finer details, they're resting on the details that you made beforehand in the early stages, and it just goes up from there, really. So you really want to try and get your proportion down so that you would have less frustration, you're more efficient, and you'll just get the job done faster. So for the blockout, I usually break it up into 4 parts: the head, torso, legs, arms. And just set your proportions and just define the basic shapes. And if you have a better understanding of an enemy, and try to block out the muscles that you do know, at least. It's better that way. I tend to block out a lot of muscles, and I tend to find it faster to make these body studies a lot whenever I'm making them from scratch. And so my workflow is for sculpting, it's basically from low to high workflow, and you add more resolution as you get more detail and as your sculpt progresses. And so it's basically like block out, you remesh to a higher resolution, which means there's more polygons in your mesh, and just sculpt. And you kind of just repeat the remesh and sculpt uh, as you go along. And the block out is like laying foundations, like getting primitives such as cubes and spheres, just the really basic geometries. And you went for remeshing, what that means is that you're converting your mesh into like a different resolution, and you're changing the geometry as well, which means like I'll remesh it to a higher resolution means I'm going to turn all the polygons in this mesh smaller, so there's more polygons, which means there's more room for detail. And as I said before, why I want to block out the sculpt is to set proportions and set foundations for higher details. And obviously, there are artists who don't block out at all, which is fine. I think they're the ones who've mastered the craft and they don't need a block out. I'm definitely not one of those like masters. I definitely need a block out for whenever I'm sculpting. And so to move on, we're gonna start with the head. And the head is very simple. It's kind of starts out from a sphere, and a neck is extruded from it. And what we're gonna use mainly is the grab brush, and and we're gonna use a little bit of the mask brush too for pulling out that neck. So go back to Blender, and I'll grab the grab brush by pressing G. That is G again to grab the tool brush. And if you want to change any of the parameters on your brush, you simply right click, and you can see there's the radius, the strength, the auto smooth, normal weight. I tend to focus on these two because for grab brush at least, very rarely do I use these two or any of the ones besides radius and strength. And what you want to do is get it to like a large size so that you can start manipulating this sphere in a very big way. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to remesh it. And voxel size, you can see here, this parameter is basically your polygon size. So the smaller the polygon size, or the smaller your voxel size, the higher resolution you're going to get. But the higher your voxel size, the bigger your polygons are, the lower resolution you're going to get. So I can press tab here, and you can see all the polygons here. It's very, very high poly. Well, like decently high poly. But whenever I remesh it, I go up to like, I think 1.1 or 0.1 is already like pretty low poly, and you can see like the entire geometry has changed, and it's just lower resolution. I think this is a dirty way to at least get your sculpting going, but I think it's fine for like a block out. It's definitely not, you shouldn't do this whenever you're getting game ready models like for retopology. It's definitely not, it's more like a decimation if anything, which is just breaking down the mesh into low poly meshes, but it's the geometry is very messy. And remeshing is just one of the ways that you can get just like fix geometry problems, but it's like a very dirty way. So let's just get started with sculpting. So here we can see like if I manipulate it, it's reflected on the other axis because we're reflecting our changes across like the x-axis right here. And if you want to go to a certain view, you can use this gizmo, and you can press on any of the axes to change your perspective to like a front view like this, or a side view like this, or a top view like this. So I think we're about ready now. Yeah. So what we want to do first is go to the X or like the side profile by pressing the X on the gizmo, and you want to just pull out the chin. And how I tend to do my faces is they're like very flat. And you just want to get just like a regular head shape. It's kind of oblong. It's not a perfect sphere. There is a general shape to it here, and you want to get that slight. It shouldn't be like too straight. It should be like slightly curved, but not too round. The chin shouldn't be too dipped either. Should be, still have some sort of dip though. And for the jaw, you would want to grab the bottom and try to make this a little flat. And you want to make this like angle here for the jawbone, like where my mouse is going. Yeah, you can take your time with it, of course. I think it's not wrong to take time on your block out. It's pretty important. But once you're done, or you feel ready, you can move on, of course. So I think I'm about done here. And please let me know if I'm going too fast. I can slow down for sure. Okay. Okay, so I think I'm ready to move on. And so now the next step is, after you've done your head, you would want to pull out your neck. So we're gonna use a mask brush for this, and we're going to draw in a mask on the bottom of this head. And you want to grab the mask brush by pressing M, and you can start drawing this shaded gray on the head, and this is your mask. And basically what it does is it like masking tape, it prevents vertices that are areas that are not covered by the mask to be influenced, and the ones under the mask not to be influenced. I could wear that. So if I grab this, you can see that I can't grab the mask part, and it's very useful. A lot of artists use it, and I think you'll be using it in the future. It's a very handy tool, and it allows you to isolate areas that you want to sculpt without interfering with the details in another area. So for the neck, what you want to do is you draw a circle on where you think your neck should extrude from. I think my neck would be fairly thick for a muscular person. You have all those muscles. And a really handy thing you can do with your mask is you can sharpen your mask by going to the mask option in the top right or top left and clicking sharpen mask. And there's no actual hotkey for this. You have to assign one yourself, but that's where you can find these mask options. You can even smooth your mask, and it would blur the border between the unmasked and masked parts. You can grow your mask, and it would expand it more. So sharpen mask, and we can't pull out the neck yet because we haven't inverted the mask. And so what inverting is, you can press Control I or Command I. I'm not sure, either one on Mac, but it would invert your mask, and now everything that wasn't masked is masked, and you have this area where you can actually extrude your neck. And what you can do now is you can grab your grab brush, get into a high radius, and you can stretch it out. And you can see from doing this that there's a lot of polygon stretching going on, and that's really problematic because um, it's not usable. It's actually very hard to move it because there's like basically no vertices to influence this. So what we want to do, a very common solution is to remesh. And once you remesh, it will remesh the whole thing and you'll get resolution on your neck and it's not stretching out anymore.
How do you take away the mask?
So the mask, to take away from the mask is you press Alt M. Yes. Yeah, my bad. I forgot to mention that. But
No, you're
if
good.
if you yeah. Uh, I think remeshing automatically removes it, so that's why. If you remesh something, it will automatically remove whatever mask you have, basically. So now that we have this basic neck, basically you can do whatever you want with it. Make it how detailed you want it to be. I'm going to at least make some sort of curve here so that it will transition smoothly with the torso. Because the torso will be a separate part that we're gonna be doing next after we finish the neck. So just grab and just keep grabbing and moving to where things ought to be. I'm building out the trapezius here, which is your neck muscle in the back. I don't want to build the clavicle mastoid yet because that'll be whenever we combine the torso and the neck together. I just want to create like a smooth transition to our torso. And we're seeing some stretching again, so we can remesh and keep going. So now when we're done with our neck, there's like a little hole here and it's actually pretty tough to actually fill. I would want to, and the way you want to fill that is by going to clay strips, and clay strips does not have a shortcut. I set it to shortcut T. I don't think there's anything in Blender that uses T, at least in sculpting mode. So T is a good shortcut for what I did. And you can go ahead and just fill it. Oh, also, one important thing that you should do whenever using clay strips or anything that adds geometry or pulls it out is you want to turn on front faces only. And that's because whenever you influence one part of the mesh, it could potentially deepen the other side of the mesh. Basically, it's like you're pulling on the mesh and it's pulling the other side as well, and you don't want that, obviously. So what you want to do is go to advanced and you want to go to front faces only to stop that, so that you'll only accumulate geometry on one side and you won't pull in geometry from the other side. It's not showing here, it's not thin enough, but for very thin geometry, it will actually do that, and it's always looks very glitchy. Okay, so let me do like some final adjustments to the head. I want to pull this chin a little bit more. And make sure that you inspect all sides. Can't say that enough. I used to not look at all sides, and I would realize that whenever I looked at my sculpt at another angle, it looked horrible. So yeah, just please keep in mind, just look in all angles just to make sure everything looks correct. And now, yeah, no, now we can move on to the next part of the sculpting, which is your torso. So for the torso, I usually break it up into 3 parts. There's the chest, there's the abdomen, and then there's the waist. I thought this was very easy to break up, and it's very easy to actually use and actually set proportions. Because this part of the process is very good for whenever you want to concept a character and you want to build like a slim or bulky build. So what you want to do is you want to go back to object mode, and to do that, you can hold Control Tab, and it will bring up your modes, and then you go to object mode, and you want to deselect that by clicking outside the sculpt, and you want to press Shift A. That'll bring up the Add tab, and you want to go to Mesh, and you want to go to UV Sphere, and it'll generate a sphere. So you go back to sculpt mode, and you want to start out grabbing and blocking out your chest. So I usually go and start with the front view. Oh, and reminder, turn on your symmetry. Every time you spawn in a new object, it's a new object, and all of the settings on there are reset, so you have to reset or redo your symmetry again. So redo your symmetry and start pulling out the chest. And I think a lot of this is very subjective. There's no right way to actually block out. Depends on what you're making, and there's no one right way to do it. And it all really comes with skill. But you really, for like this muscular build I'm doing, the deltoids are gonna be fairly wide, and I mean the trapezius is gonna go fairly wide. It's gonna go all the way over here, and it's gonna like bulk up. It's gonna be very, very bulgy over on the shoulders. I was planning to do start sculpting other things besides males, so that I can cover more ground, but I haven't mastered completely males yet. I got pretty decent at them, but I want to like focus on that more so that I can get to the professional level first. Or at least like that's my definition of professional. I feel like a lot of people tend to, or a lot of studios tend to define like some sort of general standard. Okay, now I think this is good enough for the chest. Now we can go back to object mode, and we can spawn in on this sphere. Shift A, grab your sphere, and drag it down to the abdomen area, and go back to sculpt, and basically just redo the process and block out the abdomen with the grab brush. And if you want to add more like geometry, let's say you wanted to add like block out for like the pecs here, you can go back. Well, you can go back to the chest, and you can go to clay brushes, and whenever you're doing this, make sure that you have enough resolution that you can actually block out your whatever muscle you have. So it's not exactly a lot. So I'll remesh mine again, and I can start sculpting away. And clay strips, or no, clay strips, yeah. Clay strips is, if you use ZBrush, is the equivalent of clay tubes. and it's a very nice tool for laying down organic, just like organic mounds or like muscle. I think it's very handy. It's definitely one of the brushes I use a lot whenever doing character modeling. And if you want to smoothen it out, you simply hold shift on the brush you're using and just use your stroke it down. And if you think it's too much smoothness, you can go to smooth and you can change the strength by pressing right click and just dragging that down, and you'll get a very different result. It's very smooth, it'll keep some of the definition. And what basically smooth does, for those who don't know, it basically is like throwing water on your sculpt and you just lose detail. It basically just evens out your geometry. I think it's very easy to use smooth in the beginning stages of the sculpt, but whenever you add those fine details, you should probably use smooth a lot less. That's a trap that a lot of artists get into whenever sculpting. They use the smooth brush too much and they lose a lot of detail that they put down, which is very detrimental. But at this stage, it's completely fine. I think we're just getting the rough layout. So we're gonna go back to the torso. Oh, and I don't have symmetry turned on for the torso actually, or the abdomen. Yeah, keep forgetting that. So I think a good way to fix this is if you go to symmetry, which is in your tools tab in the right hand corner side of your screen, and there's this screwdriver and wrench, and it'll show you all of the settings on your brush, and you simply want to go to symmetry and you want to click symmetrize and make sure that the direction also is in the direction that you want. I think this is from it's from right to left, so it will mirror the right to the left, and if I do negative, or if I do positive to negative, it'll do the left to the right, which is the opposite. So I'll just symmetrize it, and I'll remesh it too because I feel like I want more geometry. And you start sculpting out the abdomen with the grab brush again. And this is kind of my general workflow, is basically spawning spheres and then remeshing them and then just dragging it out, blocking it out, and then just joining all of these meshes together and then just get a final sculpt going. It's a very simple, easy way to sculpt, in my opinion. And some people do like to keep their body parts segmented. And I think that's for, I guess, their preference, really. Or there's something in the pipeline that their director wants and they have to keep parts separate. Okay. And here I'm blocking out the latissimus dorsi, which is a back muscle. A lot of these back muscles it's very big. There's not a lot as much as the front, but there's still quite a handful back here. Feel like back muscles are some of my growing pains whenever doing body sculpts, because The back is something that I'm very unfamiliar with, and it kind of took me a while to get used to, or at least know the position of each muscle, back muscle. And make sure, looking at all angles. Remesh again. Smooth it out. And yeah, no, and I think that's about it. Oh wait. I think the abs we can do for like the sculpt part. They're pretty detailed, so probably shouldn't do it. Okay, so let's move on to the waist and yeah, go back to object mode. Shift A, go to mesh, another sphere. And we're gonna draw the waist. Sculpt the waist, I mean. Go back to sculpt mode. I'll turn on symmetry again. Just get the waist down. Here, and you can see that, yeah, no, this kind of geometry isn't good because it's like converging into one point. So you would want to remesh it again. It causes a lot of stretching, and you want some evenness whenever you're sculpting, because at some point you're gonna see faceting, and that's not good. It makes it's just not smooth. It's very tacky actually. So you would want some evenness to your sculpt whenever you're whenever you're doing like a high poly sculpt, especially. A little bit too big on the butt here. Make sure your body is proportioned correctly to the head. Mine is kind of a little big actually, but I can fix that later. I think I have the general shape down for the waist at least. So yeah, no, that's the torso. Just the chest, the abdomen, and the waist. So now the next part, the legs. And I think the legs are easily one of my growing pains whenever actually getting good at body sculpts. So for the legs, we have the ankle, the heel, in the foot, we have the calf, shin bone, we have the knees, and we have the thighs. And what we're gonna use is a mirror modifier, and I'll show you that real quick. And so what we do is you want to spawn in another sphere, and you want to place it around where one of your legs would extrude from. And I would like to size this a little bit more down. Also, the way you want the hotkeys for scale, rotate, and move on Blender is very different from industry. It's S for scale, S for scale, R to rotate, and G for moving, or I would say it's short for grabbing, which is moving as a anomic for you. But you can also change these by going to preferences and simply clicking on, oh wait, let me grab it from my other window. It's and you go to key map and you go out to the Blender and type industry compatible. And from there, you can use your WER keys to shift between the three modifiers. I'm gonna switch back to Blender. And yeah, no, the mirror modifier. So what you want to do first is you want to select the object, and you want to go to object, which is a tab in the upper left-hand corner, and you want to set your origin to the 3D cursor, which it's invisible in sculpt mode, but in the layout tab, which I will open here, which you can actually add a tab here, a workspace. You can go to general, go to layout, and you can see there's like this little circle here, and that's a 3D cursor. And it will move your origin to the cursor. And what that does is what mirror does is that it puts a center line on your object, and basically whatever is on one side of that centered line will mirror on the other side of that line. So let's say if I reset my origin back to the center of my geometry and I get the mirror modifier, which you can get your mirror modifier basically from the modifier properties, which is on the right hand side of the screen, and you would want to add modifier mirror, and you can see that it's not completely changed at all, and that's because there's a center line here where my origin is, like that goes vertical, and it's basically mirroring this side with this side, and that's why it hasn't changed yet. So setting your origin whenever you're using your mirror modifier is very important. Basically, it just I had a lot of trouble figuring out why like my object wouldn't like a change because of my origin. Basically, I didn't set it right. So origin to origin to 3D cursor, I mean. And yeah, no, and now that the center line is here, it is smeared along the origin. And whenever you're sculpting with the mirror modifier on, if you don't apply it, you can't actually move the mirrored object, because this is not actually a tangible mesh. This is a render. This is a preview of what you're gonna get once you after you apply your mirror modifier. So you can't actually manipulate it anyway. So I'd say it's honestly a preference. I simply like to keep my modifiers unapplied because I want to do non-destructive changes, and I just used to that because if I modify it, you can't. Well, you can change it back, but there's only so many steps you can undo, at least. So what you want to do now is grab your leg, and you would want to extrude it. And if it extrudes too much, just put the top back to where you originally placed your sphere. Oh, and also this is probably gonna happen to you, but there's a certain point where like if you move it around too much, it will stop actually reacting to you. A good solution to this is you simply undo and then you try and move it again, or you can remesh it, which will give you smooth, even geometry. But either way works, honestly. And you would want to start grabbing and get the right shape. I think I want to redo it again. Yeah. And the leg is not a straight object. It's actually very, like, it's kind of, it has a curve to it. Actually, it's not like completely straight. Let's see from the front. Yeah, you want to check all angles. I think this is the render. So you want to block out your thighs, depending on how big you want your thighs to be. Mine is a very muscular dude, so it's gonna be very, very large thighs. And please feel free to like put any or voice any questions in the chat, or just feel free to speak really if you have some sort of concern or like some confusion. I kind of wanted the or like size this down. Oh, my radius is too big. Let's grab that again. Yeah, and make sure it's the appropriate length. And if your block out is like doesn't look that great, it's fine. Usually it'll start looking better once you try and you sculpt out the further details. It kind of just looks like a blob at this point, at this moment at least. Very undefined, like kind of like fruit or vegetables. But just be patient. It's very important that we define these things first. Yeah, I think I'm done with the thighs. So now we can move on to the shin bone or the calf. So go back to object mode again, Shift A, mesh, UV sphere. And we're gonna do the same thing that we did for the thighs, but make sure that your sphere is in the right place first before mirroring and extruding. And set your origin, very important to set your origin to 3D cursor. Go to modifier, add modifier, mirror. Go to sculpt mode. And for the calf, it should be, I think it's kind of like at this curve. It has a slight curve, not that straight. And that's because there's a muscle here called the gastrocnemius. And also the shin bone is slightly at an angle. And that contributes to the curve. Remesh it. I'm gonna smooth it out a little bit. And my guy has like really beefy gastrocnemius muscles. They're kind of like these like oblong muscles and there's two on each leg that are like side to side here. Make sure it's not too fat also. or at least for my thing, it's not that fat. It's a fairly simple leg part actually. The front part of the leg is actually just bone. A lot of the muscles on the lower leg are in the back. Okay. And now the feet. Feel like ready to go to the feet now. Go spawn UV sphere. Make sure it's in the right place. Scale it down. Maybe scale it a little bit more. Yeah. Sculpt. And I think I want to remesh this. Oh, also, I want to mirror this first. So origin to 3D cursor, modifier, mirror. Again, back to sculpt mode. Okay, so now, and to make the foot, make sure you extrude it out, not too much. You don't want a really big foot unless that's what your character is. For human foot, like a regular average human foot is not that big, or at least shouldn't be like really like larger than your head at least. And the foot is a very interesting shape. It's kind of like in a cone shape, kind of dips in the middle. Like it has, yeah, no, it has this like little like triangle shape. It's very wide in the front and it kind of narrows down to the heels. I think my calves are a little bit too wide, but I can fix that later too. I think it's good enough at least to get a good block out going. And your foot isn't completely flat. There's like this dip in the middle of your foot. And there's like some of your foot muscles here. And interestingly, the foot is not actually, doesn't have a lot of muscle to it. It's mostly bone and cartilage actually. Actually, I'm not sure if there's cartilage, I forget. But I know that it definitely doesn't have a lot of fat and muscle. It's mostly bone. Maybe I think the actual bottom foot is bothering me. I can just make it smaller. I think I want to move down my foot a little bit more. Yeah, no, that's your legs. Those are your legs right there. And now and now we need to do the knee. So, and that's very simple. It's kind of similar to a sphere shape. I usually do this because it's proved very effective whenever I draw legs, because you get that knee bone already blocked out and there's already a slight definition whenever you join them together and you start sculpting your basement sculpt. leaves a loss. Makes a lot less confusion too. So mirror, set origin to 3D cursor, add modifier, mirror, start sculpting. And you kind of wanted to connect the thigh to the shin bone or the lower leg. Yeah. It's kind of, yeah, no, this is all right, a little bit, oh, actually, no, a little bit more skinny. Okay, yeah, no, that's good. All right. Yeah, no, that is the legs. That is the legs. And now we can move on to the arms. So the arms, I think it's a very hard part too. I think the legs and the arms are the hardest part about laying down a body sculpt. And the arms, they comprise of your bicep, triceps, the upper arm, the lower arm, which has all the tendons that connect to your hand, and your hand, which is very complicated part, very complicated. I think it's like one of the most complicated part in the body, at least. And how I make this is I use clay strips and front face, or yeah, I use clay strips and grab mainly. Oh, and also the elbow bone too. It's a very slight detail. And yeah, it's the same workflow as the legs, basically just mirror modifier, and you just extrude with your grab brush and make any changes with the clay strips occasionally. So go and spawn in sphere. So origin to do cursor, mirror, and sculpt mode, grab brush, remesh, and start extruding out. I'd like to extrude it out first from the side. I think it's a lot easier that way. Oh, and it's kind of like in that slanted position. I kind of want to move it a little bit more forward.
Oh, we have a question in chat.
Oh, yes.
They're asking if we eventually skin the model and make it one smooth skin.
Oh, yes. We'll eventually join all these parts together and make it one homogeneous mesh. That's after we do the arms, of course. Definitely we will be going to join these all together. So, yeah, no, it's after this part, definitely. So, all right. So, and this part is a little bit pointed, so I want to use my clay strips and I want to reduce it. So, oh, I forgot to mention, you would want to hold the control button to do the opposite of what your brush does. So like clay strips by default adds or geometry. So what we want to do is to reduce it. So you want to hold control and just draw with it. It'll do the opposite effect. And a lot of this comes with time, actually. I feel like with a lot of 3D modeling softwares, your fundamentals are what matter most, actually, a lot of the time. I know a lot of traditional 2D artists, whenever they try to learn 3D, they get boggled by all the information that like the documentation behind like 3D software. But once they really do get the hang of it, they make good art still, and that's because they have good fundamentals. And this applies to any 3D software. Like with Blender, like I think if you don't know your fundamentals, like even if you know ZBrush or any other industry standard stuff, it's gonna be difficult to be good at least, or be hireable. So always focus on your fundamentals whenever doing like sculpting or any kind of art, at least. All comes with time and practice. Okay. Think we're done with a little bit. Not sure. I think I want a little bit more out. I'm not that great with arms, at least in this. Whenever I do this process, arms are like my least favorite part, but I usually get around to fixing it. Yeah, and I think it's very important that you definitely check all angles on the arms, because they have a really easy tendency to look very wobbly. And what I'm defining here is this is going to be the tricep. There's the deltoid. And the bicep is this little bump on the arm here. And actually, whenever people start doing sculpts, they often focus too much on the bicep, and when the real muscle on the arm is the tricep. It's literally 2/3 of your muscle mass on the upper arm. The bicep though, and it's like, it's still pronounced. It's like this little bump here. And it's kind of at an angle. It's not completely straight. It's like, yeah, kind of like that. And I guess clay strips is a better tool to use. We do this. Okay, now I'll move on to the lower arm. Yeah, so I think you know the drill. Go to object mode, spawn in your sphere. And I know like blocking out is very tedious, but I feel like it's very worth it. It saves me a lot of frustration, and it just gives me more direction with my sculpt, really. Just my personal preference, really. I know a lot of people like they like crafting their body as they go. Sometimes they just spawn a sphere and then they just remesh and extrude, remesh, extrude until they get like a full body. I mean, that is also one way to do it for sure. All right. So now mirror, and then sculpt. Then draw the lower arm. Remesh, smooth out a little bit, smooth out. Kind of ends around like the thigh and the waist, or like a thigh waist area. And that's where the hand usually goes at the end. Okay. Go to object mode. Actually, yeah, no, I think that's fine. Hand now. So hand is very simple. Actually, no, I think for the hand, it's usually kind of like a rectangular shape. I tend to make my hands a little bit more shaped like a hand rather than just like a basic shape. I had my brush unmasked there, and we just grab it and get that rectangular shape going. And I want my fingers to be a little bit curved, and the thumb kind of just goes in and covers, or it kind of extends out from here. I want to remesh it again. It's kind of stretching a bit. Yeah, no, and that there's an, oh yeah, no, and the elbow. Can't forget that one. So, and basically, for blocking out, it's your decision how detailed you want to go with your block out. I put a lot of like parts together. I think forearm, I mean, yeah, no, 4 objects for an arm is already a decent amount. I think anything further than this is a little bit too much, but that's just my opinion, really. Doesn't all kind of down to the artist's decision, really. Now place it over here and set origin, 3D cursor, modifier, mirror. And sculpt. Want to stretch the elbow bone. Oh, it's more like a little diamond shape here. And yeah, though that's basically what the base mesh is. It's, I think it's kind of close to what a mannequin is. And I think once you're done with like setting down the basic parts, just make sure that your proportions are correct. I notice here that my proportions aren't exactly this, like it's not exactly right. So I think I can extend it a little bit. Oh, that's definitely too much. If I could just manually do that. Yeah, no, I think that's good. Yeah, no, that's good. So make sure your proportions are correct. Check all angles one last time before joining all of these parts into one homogeneous mesh. Make sure it looks correct here. Yeah, no, it has that kind of S-shaped curve. maybe a little bit more on the torso. How are we on time? Okay. So I'm going to show you how to join all these together. But I have to be really quick too. So once you're done with all these parts, you want to join them. And how you do that is you go to object mode, and then you would want to drag, select all your parts, and you would want to press Control J, and that control, it just joins everything together. And now you can see here that one part of my body has magically disappeared, and that's because we didn't apply our mirror modifiers. And we can set our mirror modifier by going to this down arrow and clicking apply, or you can press Control A to as a hotkey to. Okay, maybe not. Maybe not. Just apply A, and you basically now this render is now a actual tangible thing that you can actually sculpt with. But I know that going through each different object in applying mirror is very annoying. So what I like to do to speed it up is I select everything. I go to the object tab on the top left corner. I go to the apply, and I basically apply visual geometry to mesh. So what you see here, all these renders, you would want to convert all what you see in the viewport into a mesh. And that basically applies all the modifiers together. And how, as you can see now, there's no modifier here that's lingering, and it's truly, the left side has truly become a mesh that you can sculpt with tangibly. So now off to joining all together. So select all and Control J. And now you've magically just combined everything together into one mesh. And the thing is that all these have different resolutions. That's kind of my fault actually, but it's not a problem. I think it's there's an easy way to solve this, and that's by going back to the sculpt mode. And you can see here there's face sets. There's a lot of face sets, and what it is because that all these parts were different objects before, and now they've been joined together. But they're also different resolutions, so that's probably why too. So what you want to do is you want to go to remesh, and you want to just remesh it. And this time, since we're about to do a base sculpt, we would want to have more resolution. So you want to lower your voxel size to like something like, I don't know, between 0.4, 0.5, and you click remesh. And now this will convert everything into one resolution, and we'll remove all the face sets too. And for your information, this gray color is a face set too in itself. It's, even though it doesn't have like another color, but keep in mind that this is also a face set. This gray color, default color, is a face set. So now you can smooth out your mesh and join everything together by just smoothing out everything. And also remember to set symmetry again. It also resets the symmetry whenever you control join all of them. And what I like to do when joining them is I just hold shift and smooth it, or I could go to like clay strips and I could just build on this and just just join everything together into one mesh. Make everything look like one piece. Hold those. That moves on to my second, or the body sculpt, which is a base sculpt. And basically my recommendations whenever you're doing the base sculpt is use a lot of reference, and I mean a lot. I definitely just go onto Google and type in like muscular male body or like male diagram or whatever, or female, either way is fine. Just make sure you use a lot of reference, and do try to like draw muscles, and also if you want, you can pose your base sculpt too, so that it's in the right pose and before you start sculpting. And there's another tip that I like to do whenever I'm sculpting, and is that I just look away from my sculpt after I've like sculpted for like, I don't know, 30 minutes or just like a very long time. And that's because your eyes kind of distort how you look at the reference versus your own object. So when you like look away and you look back again, you notice those errors and then you make adjustments to those errors, and it's just a better way to understand why your sculpt is not looking exactly like the reference. It's a very handy tip I learned. Very helpful. And of course, we use clay strips and grab brush mainly to just lay down our muscles. And we're going to use the draw sharp brush to define the divides between the muscles. So let's go back to Blender and let's start sculpting out muscles. And how are we on time? Yeah, okay, so I'll go over this very quickly. I probably won't be able to sculpt like the full thing, but I'm just gonna show you my workflow. I usually just like lay down like clay strips and then I like smooth it out like so. And I use grab brush occasionally for just like the very broad changes to my shapes. Drawing your tricep here. And then I think I'll show the front because that's easier to visualize here. So draw your pecs, and your pecs usually would like end around like here next to your clavicle, which is the two bones, the long bones you have on your collar. And yeah, no, it all comes down to your knowledge of anatomy at this stage of the process, really. I usually for body sculpts, I spend like a good like 1 hour to 2 hours just like trying to nail the basic forms of these shapes. I don't draw like the little fibers that you see and all the fat bulges, the subtle ones, but I try to get the general shape going. And for like, you can use the grab brush here to deform it like so very easily. Kind of drew it a little bit too big. Check the side and you can grab that out again a little bit more. Grab it out. Yep, use clay strips. Lay down some more. And like then start with your abdominals. Let's get that rough shape down. Join the waist together. Probably drew them a little bit too small. Just drag it down a little bit. I think there is an overuse of the move brush at least. Don't use it. I think you can use it as much as you want, but if it starts to actually like deform your mesh in a very bad way, I think it's better to start with another route at least, to try and use another brush to remedy your whatever you're trying to fix. Then we're just gonna try this Taurus. But yeah, no, this is basically like up to you really. How bulky you want it, how much muscles you want to define. It can I'm going about this in a very realistic fashion. If you want to be stylistic, stylistic muscles, they're very they're very exaggerated, and they kind of it's not very subtle. Like in realistic sculpts, there are a lot of very subtle like features, like some fat, like very small detailed fat lumps. But like I think stylized, you have like very defined muscles, like you have very defined deltoids and very defined trapezius. Like the main muscles that people pay attention to really. And I think it's up to you whether or not you want to do either style. Either style looks very good, actually. I think they look very nice. I do, however, think that it's important to know anatomy first before you try and stylize, because you take how you stylize is basically you deform what you know about the real world and you just exaggerate it. So I think it's better to know your general anatomy first before you start making stylized. But stylized is definitely like very nice, like Valorant or League of Legends. They're very, I like that kind of art style. I'm a huge fan. And if your mesh starts stretching, just remesh it to like just lower your voxel size to a lower resolution, and you'll get a lot more evenness and room to actually sculpt very detailed stuff. Yeah, drawing the something clavomastoid. The V-shaped on your neck. I'll draw your clavicle here. In your front deltoid muscle, connects here with your tricep. And yeah, no, you decide how bulky it is and make sure that I often tend to make muscles undersized for what I'm really going for. Like I would have like a really big like chest area, really defined pecs, but my deltoids would be very small. So make sure, well, at least that's in my opinion. It's more for like a cohesive thing, at least. Like a bodybuilder would try and work on every muscle rather than just their pecs and their abdomens. And yeah, this is the latissimus dorsi. But let's draw like this. The tres majors first. Kind of right here. What time is it now? Okay. So I'll finish the top. And then we can move on to you can move on to the high detailing. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to finish the space sculpt, at least the one I just made. I do have base sculpt you all should have downloaded in the beginning, and we're going to use that to test out the high poly stuff that Blender has to offer. Probably should extend this a little bit more. Extend this out a little bit. And your gluteus maximus. Okay, I think that's it for the base sculpt on the top part. So with what time we have left, I think we should go over some high poly stuff. So what I want you guys to do is, well, you can do this with whatever you have at the moment, or with the base mesh that I gave you at the beginning. I'm gonna go to that base mesh. Let me open. Oh, I won't save this, or I'll save it out. Actually, I'll save it. And go to save, and then we'll go to base mesh. Where did I put it? No. There it is. Okay. And this should be like, well, at least like something close. At least for me, this is a finished one. I'm still building on my anatomy, so please. But yeah, no, this is what we're gonna use. So the next part is just a lot of things you can use for detailing. And there's a lot of pretty cool brushes that Blender has. I'm gonna start off with the snake hook. Basically, you can make a tail or you can make arms with it. So the sculpt mode, go here actually. And what the snake hook does, and I think the shortcut is Shift Spacebar K. And what we want to do is you can make these little horn protrusions, basically, or it can make a lot of. It's a very interesting brush it kind of pulls your mesh out in this S-like fashion, and you can do a lot of cool things with it, like monster designs for tentacles, or like tails, for example. You can do tails, or you can do like horns. It's just a very creative brush, has a lot of potential. And you can see that there's like some sort of like stretching. You can see it pulls it out very long, but a good way to actually remedy this is remeshing it. And just remesh it to like a reasonable size remesh. And you can smooth it out, and you have yourself a horn here, and that you can draw on, really. I think it's very nice for concepting, at least. And the next brush we can use is the Blob Brush, and what that does is, yeah, you can make it kind of just pulls out the geometry and makes like this blob. Or this is the Inflate brush. It does basically the same thing. It's very similar. I feel like this has a very sharp, it has a sharper change, like it has a very steep change. And you can basically just like make a bunch of like blobs, like you can make hair with this, or very stylized designs, or like skin bumps. There's a lot of things you can make with this, at least. Very organic tool too. And the next one is Inflate, which I just showed you. It's very similar. I don't really like using Inflate that much. It's very useful in some situations, but it's a brush that I tend to not go to. It just, it's similar to the Blob Brush where it just pulls it out, but it's a much more gradual buildup. And crease is similar to Draw Sharp. Oh, also, I didn't explain Draw Sharp. Basically, what Draw Sharp is, it's kind of like the damn standard tool in ZBrush, or it's like the wrinkle like tool. Basically, it's very nice for making wrinkles and stuff. Oh, no, don't do that. Okay. And basically, crease is like the more gradual version of it. And creases doesn't have, wait, no, it has a hotkey. It's Shift Spacebar C. And what it does is that it creates a crease here, but it also pulls the surrounding geometry like a lot. But you can like decrease the strength or increase it. If you increase the strength, you get this really isolated streak. It doesn't pull the surrounding geometry that much. And if you like lower the strength, let's have some strength, it pulls around the surrounding geometry a lot. It's a very small crease, very, very light crease. I think it's very useful for like muscles too, for pulling on them. It creates like this sort of tension in the geometry that I like. And Draw Jitter, what Draw Jitter does is you click on Draw, and and you want to duplicate it. And if you want to go back to your previous brush, you go click on the icon and you can switch to brushes. But let's call this like Draw Jitter. And what you want to do is you want to go to your stroke settings, and you want to go and increase the jitter. And what it does is basically just randomizes your stroke. And it has this cool skin effect. And if you want to like decrease the strength too, it has a more slight effect. But it's very nice for detailing your skin. If it has like chills or bumps on it, it's not very smooth. And it's good for like reptiles, or like frogs, like other animals, or aliens especially. Yeah, but it's a very nice tool or a very nice effect that you can do instead of using the draw brush over and over again to achieve this effect normally. This is very nice. And this is like one of my favorite parts of Blender. ZBrush has this too. They're called alphas, and basically it's taking a PNG and basically stamping some like a picture or something. And let me show you. So, and you can do this too, actually. I gave you resources in a folder, and they should be filled with images, and those images are alpha images that you can use in Blender. And so how do you do this is you can go to draw, and you go to the texture setting, and you can open up another window by like going to the corner here, and whenever it makes this plus sign, you can drag it and it makes another window. And if you want to close it, you simply drag it to the window you want to close, and then it'll close it for you. But I want 2 windows for this so I can see what I'm inputting into the brush. So I click on new, and it will show the settings here for the texture brush. And now when we want to use our alpha, so open here, and we can go to resources, alphas, and you have a variety of brushes that you can use. And I'm going to use this bark brush. And it's important that you switch your stroke to anchored, and you want to change your mapping to view plane. And what this does is it allows you to drag this stamp onto the mesh. And it's a very nice tool for high detailing. And and of course, whenever you get higher resolution, like let's go to like around 0.1 and remesh it, you're gonna get like barely any like definition from your alpha stamp. And it's very important that whenever you're using alphas that you have a very decent resolution so that it'll actually show. And this is of course for the high poly stuff, whenever you're doing like your final detailing, like very, very detailed surface stuff. And you can do this with any image too. You can like go on Google and you can basically insert like a PNG here, and it'll create a alpha stamp. But I feel like you should that requires more processing with Photoshop, and in order to make like an alpha map. It's getting into more intermediate topics, but basically this is a very cool way to do high poly stuff whenever you're doing your final details, and I find it very fun. And like you can do like there's another alpha, like the zipper brush, and you can play around with these too. And see places like these zipper things here, and if I like take off this symmetry, it's like zipper here. But it's very handy. I think alphas are really cool. And lastly, what I want to show you guys is the pose brush. And in order to use the pose brush effectively, you want to lay down some face sets. So what you want to do in Blender is get your face set draw brush. And what this allows you to do is allows you to make a face set. This is synonymous with polygroups in ZBrush. If you use ZBrush, basically just categorizes which areas you want to separate. I find it very easy to use the lasso face set tool. That way you can like drag it with your brush like so, and you can separate the arm. And I missed some arm of here. I missed some spaces here. So a good way to remedy that is go to the draw brush tool, and in order to expand it, because if you start drawing, I'll actually make another face set, but if you want to expand the area, you want to hold control, hover over the area, and then just draw, and it'll expand that area. And this goes for also erasing it too. You just want to hold control on another face set, and it'll erase the other face set, and you'll erase it. It's very good for drawing specific areas. And I want to like cover this whole hand here. Very important. Oh, actually, no. I'm going to separate it. So I think the arms are a very good way to demonstrate pose brush. I'll go to my lassos tool, face set tool, and I'm going to go and draw, separate the hand, and then separate the lower arm from the upper arm. And I guess if we want to go further, we can, also we can hide these by touching, pressing the H button. And if you hide, and if you hover over the, the default, or whatever face set you have, it will hide the other face sets and only have this face set appear. And it's very easy to isolate whatever you want to draw a face set with. So I go back to lasso, and I'll isolate the torso there, and then press Alt H to make the other face sets reappear. And now that we've set our face sets, we can now use the pose brush. And this is basically, you can use this to pose your limbs and like move it like a rig would do. But I think it's very hard to use whenever you don't have any face sets and you're kind of just guessing, because it, as you can see here, there's like a little white line that's within the brush radius, and that is a bone essentially. It inserts a temporary bone that you can use to move the mesh around. And with face sets, what you can do, what's really cool, is that you can make like inverse and forward kinematics with it. And you can do this by going to your brush settings, going to your rotations origins, and you click on face sets. And you want to put your IK segments to around 2, I think, or 3. And basically, it'll just connect all of these like little segments together, and it'll make like this. Oh, it's not working properly. Here we go. So yeah, no, it works like a IK, kind of like an IK rig. But as you can see, I don't think this, it's not retopologized this sculpt, and therefore it doesn't deform that well. In my opinion, it's kind of just stretching out. If I retopologize this properly, it wouldn't have this issue. But yeah, this is just standard statue sculpting. But I think this is a very cool way. If you've retopologized your sculpt, this is a very cool way to get easy poses and postures very quickly. And yeah, no, this is very cool. And you can set other face sets here, and you can like maybe put your leg up here and like bend your knees, or put your arms like in a pose too. Very cool. Very cool. And yeah, no, I think that's everything that I had to teach in this workshop. And I want to like leave you off with a summary about Blender. And I think Blender is definitely catching up with industry standard stuff lately, at least. Before, in like 2 years ago or 3 years ago, like in 2018, it was like very limited use in the industry, I think, or like barely at all, or none at all, actually. But now it's doing a lot of things that industry stuff is capable of, such as like subdivision levels. You can do that with your multi-res modifier. I didn't show you it because it only works on retopologized meshes. And I think with Blender, you have to install a plugin to do that. It's not in its native software. You have to like add it, but there's a, let me search it. It's called Quad Remesher, and this is essentially auto retopology plugin that automatically retopologizes your high poly sculpt, instead of you having to manually do it, and you take like hours and hours to get the right topology going. And it costs money, I think, but I think this is definitely cheaper than a lot of subscriptions that you use with ZBrush and like other industry stuff. And I think the perpetual license is like $105. I think that's a very good investment though. If you have that lying around, definitely should buy this if you're planning to use Blender like mainly as a software. Very, very powerful, I think. Very powerful. Like takes a few seconds to just retopologize your models for like animation and like texture baking. Very nice. Instead of you having to do it and toil hours to just retop your sculpt. And I still think it still has some stuff to go with, like, yeah, with like limited retop options. And like, I think whenever it gets to like the millions upon like millions of polygons, it starts to crash. Not millions upon millions, like a few million for me, it starts crashing. And it's free use. I think that's a very good part of Blender. You don't have to pay subscription for like things like ZBrush and Maya. It's very nice, and it's also very intuitive for beginners. I think Blender is my very first 3D sculpting tool. I think it's very handy, and I plan to use it for my future personal projects too. Like I would like to one day do stylized stuff, and I think Blender is very nice for that. But it's also very good for realistic stuff too. And yeah, and one last thing, it's very, very important that you focus on your fundamentals and your core skills above all else. Because even if you know the whole documentation behind Blender, you won't have good art unless your fundamentals are good. So always keep practicing. I practice like 6 to 8 hours every day just to like get my stuff going. But that's because I already graduated, so I have the time. But yeah, no, make sure that you're not rusty and that you always just keep it up, really. Yeah, no, that's all I have for you guys. Any questions?
For the pose brush that you were showing earlier, is that does that transition into rigging, or is that just for like if you want an immovable sculpt to be in a different pose?
It's more of if you want an immovable sculpt to be in a different pose.
Okay.
I think it just mimics the rig, really. Yeah.
Nice, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. It's like, yeah, I think pose brush is it still has like some wonky things, and I think it really works for retopologized models that have good edge flow and can deform well. Like my sculpt is definitely just a statue that, and if you move it at all, it'll like stretch the polygons.
I've been there.
Yeah.
Any questions, y'all? If not, I'm gonna end the stream, and then oh wow, you fit so much into 2 hours. That's kind of crazy. Or you like really, you timed it so well. That's kind of amazing.
I no, I was worrying about this like the whole month actually. I was wanting to see what I can put in and what I can't really. This is my first workshop actually. I never really done workshops before, so yeah, no. I'm glad it went well. Yeah, no.
Yeah,
I
it went
definitely
great.
learned a whole lot.
Yeah, me too. I just realized that the stream probably saw me like going through like Blender files and stuff, and like and
I see, yeah,
crashing and stuff, but yeah, that's okay.
Yeah. And if you want this and if you want to have this PowerPoint, I guess I could put it on the drive that I linked as well, and you guys can download it. Yeah. And if you ever want to talk to me, just email me. You can reach me out at yoholaksana@gmail.com. I'll put it in the chat. Please feel free. I'm not gonna bite. I'm like in the same boat as you guys. I'm trying to get into the industry as well.
Mhm.
At least, at least I'm trying to get into a bigger studio at least. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very competitive out there. There's like thousands of applicants. So yeah,
Mhm.
no, honestly, just keep hanging on. You'll get better. It takes a lot of patience, especially in this kind of field where art takes time to build up. So just don't get down if you're not immediately better. It takes time for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, if there's
Totally.
yeah, no, like reach out, feel free.
That's so nice.
Yeah,
uh,
no worries.
okay. Well, I thought it was a great workshop. I'm gonna end the stream now.